أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا سيد الزهراء عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام. I first and foremost begin by giving you all condolences on the loss of our mother Sayyidah Zahra alayhi afdalu salam and the loss of Muhsin, her unborn son. I also implore all of you on these nights to understand that the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen is what Sayyidah Zahra fought for. And on these nights when we commemorate her, it is not that she just stood up for her husband. She stood up for the Imam of her time. She stood out against the oppressors and the dhalim of her time to say that no, you will not take my Imam. And in such a case, she lost not just her baby, but her own life. During these nights, it's important for us to understand, what does it mean to identify as a Shia? Where does the Shia identity stem from? We as Shia stand proud to say that we are Shia. But is it Muharram that makes us Shia? Is it commemorating Abi Abdullah? Is it merely just saying that I have the love of the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Or is it understanding that the tawalla and the tabarra, the aspects of commemorating the happiness and commemorating the sadness of Ahlul Bayt in turn, and remembering that taking the good and the bad and disassociating from the enemies of Ahlul Bayt and assuring that you are close to the ones that Ahlul Bayt loved, come as a package when it comes down to identifying as a Shia. I'm honored and blessed to be joined by Syed Redha al-Mousawi. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidina Mawlana.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor and a pleasure to sit alongside you. I think it's important that when looking during these nights of Fatimiyya, we look at a topic such as identities of us as Shias. How can we identify as a Shia? So I want to ask you the very basic question to start off with, is that how do we as Shias identify? Where do we bring our identity from, or where do we garner this word identity as a Shia?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم القول مني في جميع الأشياء قول آل محمد فيما أسر وما أعلن وفيما بلغني عنهم وفيما لم يبلغني. A very important topic, this topic of identity, especially coming with the days of Fatimiyya. We have to understand what makes our identity, or what makes our identity unique or different from others. When we want to compare any two beliefs, any two ideologies, any two sides of a debate and whatever, you see there are similarities and differences. Similarities are important. Why? Because they are a base when you want to debate. It creates the base, it creates the foundation which you build upon when you want to debate. For example, if you were to debate between a Shi'i and a Sunni, your base will be what? Quran. So there are similarities, and with any two different beliefs, thoughts, ideologies, the similarities are important because they are the foundation to create conversation, to create debate.
Yes.
But then you have the differences, and it is even more important because the differences is what makes you unique and what specifies you and your identity. That's what separates you from the other. It's the differences that make it unique. What gives you your identity, what gives you that unique aspect of your identity is the difference. Hence why it is important and it is crucial that we do not neglect these differences. A lot of people, they debate or they advocate for Islamic unity, but their understanding of Islamic unity is that we have to remove all differences. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. Islamic unity in the sense of being able to live with one another peacefully, having different beliefs, that's okay. But the moment you start letting go of your differences, you are not unique anymore. You have made your identity void, which is many people, they live through identity crisis. Correct?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they are too afraid to result in conflict. So they want to please everyone. When they want to, this is in general I'm talking. They want to please everyone. When they want to please everyone, they want to let go of any differences they have. That's why many people have these identity crises when they go through their lives. And I study this as I study psychology. And we see it's a big problem, it's a large problem. It is because they are afraid to hold on to differences. And us as Shia, we should be proud and hold on to our differences. Now, going back to our point, as Muslims, what do we share? What is our similarities? Our belief in Allah as a general, our belief in a prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our belief in the Quran, and our belief that there is a day of judgment where we will be judged and we'll either be entering heaven or hellfire depending on our actions. Those are similarities and things that we can build upon when we want to debate. We have something that I can bring evidence from and you can bring evidence from, and then we compare which one has the stronger evidence from the same source. And then you have the differences, and that is what makes us Shia. For example, I wear my ring on my right. That is a differentiating factor. I pray with the turba. That is a differentiating factor. These should be an aspect of pride. It is the differences that shape your identity. Praying on that turba, wearing your ring on the right, wearing black when Muharram arrives instead of being happy and celebrating. That is what makes you unique. That is what makes you a Shi'i. So we have to celebrate the differences and honor them as much as possible.
When it comes down to Sayyida Zahra though, I think one of the key factors would be that how does she play a pivotal role in us identifying as Shia? Because you see, even within the Shia there are sectors and there are segments and factions which say, Fatimiyya, you guys do too much. Or why do you have to commemorate all three riwayat? Just pick one, merge them. Such, these blasphemous talks. And there are some who would say that, oh, you Shia, all you want to do throughout the year is mourn. And that's why you extend all these periods. You choose so many dates to commemorate things. I think it needs to be understood that why is Sayyida Zahra so important to identifying as a Shia? Because, of course, Imam Sadiq gives us the signs of a mu'min. Within that, it doesn't mention Fatima. He mentions, for example, Ziyarat al-Arba'in, Ziyarat Imam Hussein and Arba'in. But we also understand that within that, there's a caveat. That these things, yes, they're a sign of a mu'min. But to be able to have belief, let alone be a mu'min, to have yaqeen and to understand that you are a Shia, the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen is one of the necessary precautions. But I also think it's important to factor in understanding who is Sayyida Zahra and the pivotal role she plays in the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, in Karbala in itself. The fact that she was there in Karbala, many don't realize that so many of the key moments within Islam she was present in, and her role within those.
Ahsantum. This is very important. When we look at Sayyida Zahra salamullahi alayha, let's look at Ahl al-Bayt. What differentiates us from the other school of thought? Well, you're going to tell me the love of Ahl al-Bayt. I'm going to tell you wrong. They say they love Ahl al-Bayt. So that cannot be a differentiating factor which creates our identity. Because generally, most Sunnis, the people who are not enemies of Ahl al-Bayt, those are the Nawasib, they will say, we love Hassan Hussein, we love Fatima, we love Ali, radiyallahu an. We love them. So you cannot say that's a differentiating factor. And then you say, okay, the differentiating factor is wilayah. I will tell you no. Because vaguely, they believe in the successorship of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They believe in him as the what? The fourth successor of Rasulullah.
And in fact, some of them say that, no, okay, even if he wasn't a Khalif, they went to him for guidance because he was the religious understanding. He had the most religious understanding. And that's what Rasulullah meant by he was transferring religious understanding and religious leadership to Amir al-Mu'mineen.
Exactly.
Not political.
Exactly.
So that excuse can also be used by them.
So wilayah, to a degree, it is not the clear-cut differentiating factor. But what is the differentiating factor? The differentiating factor is not the wilayah, but the invalidity of the other successors. Understood? They say he is the fourth Khalifa. We say Ali ibn Abi Talib is the Khalifa of Rasulullah with the invalidity of the rest. So what becomes the differentiating factor? The bara'ah. The unique aspect of you as a Shi'i is not wilayah. They have in their ahadith where they mention the hadith of Ya Ali anta minni bimanzalati Haruna min Musa. You are of me as Aaron was to Moses. They have all these ahadith and they believe in it. It is not your wilayah. It is believing in the invalidity of those who took the caliphate from Ali ibn Abi Talib. And where we link it to Fatima is that Lady Fatima was the main exposer of these people, the highlighter of their invalidity, both by her words and her actions. Let's look at her words. In the sermon of Fadak, which we will delve into on another occasion, but I want to mention this snippet. She says, Salamullahi alayha, so when Allah chose to take His Prophet to the abode of His prophets, and when the dwelling of His sincere servants, the thorny tree of hypocrisy appeared amongst you, and the robe of religion became ragged. The misguided, who were previously silent, began to speak. The unknown few arose, and the liars came forward, braying like camels as they strutted, wagging their tails in your courtyard. Satan raised his head from his hiding place and called out to you. He found you responsive to his call and attentive to his deception. These words gives you goosebumps. She stood in front of them and exposed them. Satan called out to you and you accepted the call of Satan. Because when Ali called out, you did not accept his call. The thorny tree of hypocrisy appeared. She exposed them. That's why Khutbah Fadaki has such problems misconceptions that I want to bring, which we will talk about. Because it exposed them. And then with her actions as well, she stood against them. When she told Ali ibn Abi Talib, you bury me by secret to make sure these people do not attend my grave, we see the differentiating factor. The uniqueness of our identity is none other than Fatima and what happened to Fatima. And our identity is Fatima. And what you mentioned as well, saying that some of the signs of the mu'min is Ziyarat al-Arba'in, Ziyarat al-Hussein. We read in Ziyarat Ashura, لعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور. May Allah curse the nation who paved the way, who built the foundations for the oppression of Ahlul Bayt and Imam al-Hussein. You want to understand what happened to Imam al-Hussein? Look at what happened to Fatima. That's why there is such a strong relationship between Lady Fatima and Imam al-Hassan. The ribs that broke in Karbala, you want to understand why they dared to break his ribs?
Because they were able to break Zahra.
Because with Sayyidah Zahra, they dared to break her ribs. You want to understand why Muslims who believe in the Prophet had the audacity to slaughter a 6-month-old child? Look at those who dared to miscarry Al-Muhsin. You want to know those who dared to burn the tents of Zainab? Look at those who built the foundations by burning the door of Fatima. So Fatima is such a pivotal role when it comes to the movement of Imam al-Hussein. When it comes to Ahlul Bayt in general, we are the representatives of Allah upon His creation, and Ummuna Fatima hujjatun alayh. Our mother Fatima is a representative of Allah upon us. So it shows us the importance of Lady Fatima. If she is our identifying aspect, then she has to be a source of pride for every Shia. Do not let go of anything that we commemorate of Lady Fatima, because you are making your identity void. You're only ruining yourself. Lady Fatima doesn't need you.
And you know, it breaks my heart in this modern era. There are many of our shabab who don't understand the importance of Sayyidah Zahra. They will commemorate Abi Abdullah. They'll do everything in the khidmah of Abi Abdullah, especially during the 40 days. You know, it comes down to an aspect of a lot of our shabab, a lot of our community, a lot of our youth think, you know what, I have Arba'een, I have the 10 days, the first 10 days. The rest of the year, I can do what I want. And Ramadan, those are the times I need to really focus on my deen. They don't realize that there are many moments within the year, especially in Fatimiyya, which have laid the foundations for what we're commemorating. They, like you said, they wouldn't have dared to burn the tents of Zainab if they weren't able to burn the door of Zahra. They wouldn't have dared. And you know what? It's funny you mentioned this, and it's quite an incident that you mentioned this, that when they burnt the house of Imam al-Sadiq, alayhi afdalu salam, he says that the riwayat say that he sat against the wall and he began to weep. His house is burning. He's seeing his children running and he's seeing everybody around him in turmoil, but he sat and wept. And they had to pull him out of the house. And they said, "Oh, my mom, did you not want to protect your life?" He says, "Not that I remembered Karbala first." He says, "No, I remembered that they burnt the door of Zahra first." So the Imams themselves, when it comes down to times of their difficulties, the first they would remember would be their grandmother, Sayyidah Zahra. And I want to move on to a question which is quite important and linked to this, is that how pivotal is it that we don't forget the dhulm that happened on Sayyidah Zahra? Nowadays, one of the issues that I'm personally seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing it in Australia as well, is that within the West especially, a lot of our youth want this unity movement. And in this unity movement, it means what? Because the sticky point would be that the attack on Sayyidah Zahra occurred by their khulafa, or that the fact that Sayyidah Zahra's dhulm occurred by those that the other school of thought revere. Let's not mention Sayyidah Zahra's dhulm. Let's just talk about that she was sad for Rasulullah. Let's just talk about that Amir al-Mu'mineen had to bury her in secret. But let's not talk about why he had to do this. Let's not talk about the fact that she had to come out bleeding to give a khutbah in front of the khulafa. Let's not talk about that she had to come to the mosque and she was going to give badwa on these people, such that Amir al-Mu'mineen had to beg her to stop. They want to forget all these aspects. There are youth who you tell that, oh, Sayyidah Zahra's ribs were broken. They will try and tell you, no, she didn't. She died out of sadness for Rasulullah. And these are our own Shia. So how is it important that in today's era we try and signify these nights? How do we try and revive the love of Zahra in the youth?
Ahsantum, that is a very important point. What we have to understand, like we just proved, our unique aspect of our identity is Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha. And the reason why it is so important, and what proves to us, what strengthens this proof to us, that how can my point be backed up by evidence? You ask me, well, how can you prove that Lady Fatima, she is the identifying aspect? Just look at how much they try to scrutinize and break apart and try to destroy her remembrance. That in of itself is strong enough evidence to prove that there is a sensitivity when it comes to Lady Fatima.
Yeah,
and it proves that if we are to destroy this aspect, we will be safe. They cannot ruin or they cannot break down the whole thing that Lady Fatima was killed. So what do they start doing? The small details, the broken rib, the miscarriage of Al-Muhsin, the fact that she was hit by Qambar, so on and so forth. Every detail they try to scrutinize. Every detail they try to break apart. I ask you, why this insistence? If it isn't something that causes sensitivity, if it isn't something that is a thorn in their path. Hence why they spend many and large amounts of money for channels, for media, for comments, for posts, to make sure that they scrutinize the Shia for their belief of Lady Zahra. And even within the Shia, and unfortunately they fall susceptible to these, they say, yeah, they're right. Why do we commemorate Lady Zahra? Why for 3 different occasions, not one? Why for all of this? Who did Allah create this universe for? Who did Allah create this universe for? If it wasn't for?
Wow.
Look. Fatima wa abiha wa ba'liha wa baniha. Who's the center? The center is Fatima. She is the center of all of this. The link between prophethood and imamah is Fatima. Allah created all of this for them. You're telling me you can't commemorate an extra 2 events for Lady Fatima? Wallahi, if we were to commemorate her every day, it would not be enough. And we look at history and we see those who mentioned what happened to Lady Fatima. Just seeing how they were treated is enough to show us that it was a thorn in their path. I'll give you an example. Someone by the name of Ibn Abi Dara, Al-Dhahabi narrates about what happened to Ibn Abi Dara. Ibn Abi Dara is not from the Shia school of thought. He is a Sunni scholar. He speaks on him. He says that he was on the right path most of his life, Al-Dhahabi. And Al-Dhahabi is notorious for being a strong enemy of the Shia. He says that Ibn Abi Dara was on the right path for most of his life, but then he deviated. Why did he deviate, O Dhahabi? We ask him, why did he deviate? They say that he was good. He was a scholar, well respected, revered, but towards the end of his life he deviated. The reason was because Ibn Abi Dara was in the presence of someone that mentioned what happened to Al-Muhsin. Ibn Abi Dara, he still has his beliefs and he is Sunni and nowhere near the Shia. But he was in the presence of someone that mentioned what happened to Al-Muhsin, Ibn Abi Dara's reputation was destroyed and he was exiled. He was in the presence of someone that mentioned what happened to Al-Muhsin. I ask you, why this sensitivity? If it wasn't a thorn in their path, that they try every single opportunity they can to destroy this, they will destroy it. And another example, which is someone that during Fatimiyya has to be honored. As in Eid al-Ghadir, Allam al-Amini is honored for his great work, for making his volumes of book of al-Ghadir. This man should be honored because he sacrificed a lot. Sulaym ibn Qais al-Hilali.
أحسنت أي والله.
Sulaym ibn Qais, whose name is etched with Fatima because of his book. His name is etched with Lady Fatima because he recorded the events that happened after the death of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. And unfortunately, in today's age, you have certain people who want to scrutinize the book of Sulaym ibn Qais al-Hilali. And that is a different topic for a different day. But we notice that this man is closely linked with Lady Fatima because he exposed what happened. He narrated what happened. And that is why Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi placed an order for his arrest because he was doing this. And it caused him to be in hiding for 10 to 20 years. Sulaym ibn Qais would hide from town to town, from place to place, like he is some sort of outlaw, or because he wanted to mention what happened to Lady Fatima. Not only him, many blood was spilt for just being related to Fatima. We see that during the time of Imam al-Kadhim, what they would do to the Shia. That man where he enters and he says that Harun took me to a place that had 3 rooms and a well in the middle. I look at the rooms, each room had 60 of the children of Ali and Fatima, the Sayyids. From old to young, the guard gives me a sword. He says, Harun has given you an order. And he sends me them one by one. He would decapitate them and they would throw the head and body down the well. He says, till I counted 60 of the children of Ali and Fatima, I killed in one night. All because they are related to Fatima. So you have to understand, oh my brother, oh my sister, who does not feel the commemoration of Sayyidah Zahra is important. Know how much blood was shed that this message remained with us today. Know how much people sacrificed for this message to remain till today. Know how much was given for the sake that this remained with us today. Because if it wasn't for us having what happened to Lady Fatima, our identity is void. If it wasn't for her sacrifice, dying at the age of 18, miscarrying, her grave not being known where it is. And that is one of the best things you can tell someone who denies all of this. And then why is her grave not evident?
And in fact, you can see in the riwayat, Amir al-Mu'mineen's reaction to them wanting to look for the grave itself, in fact. You can see the fact that the next day, Amir al-Mu'mineen has come to a breaking point. When they come to say, we will exhume every one of these 40 graves, Amir al-Mu'mineen did what? He drew the line.
Yeah, and the reason was because the wasiyah was done.
Ahsan.
So he told them, he said, now before this, I had a wasiyah. So I couldn't do anything. But now, there is no wasiyah. And he unsheathed his Dhul Fiqar. He said, and I remember I was reading the hadith and he gave me goosebumps. He said, I will turn Al-Madinah into a graveyard.
That's the one.
If you dare touch the grave of Fatima. And we have to understand the oppression of Ahl al-Bayt is so crucial to not question or disrespect.
There's a moment in that breaks my heart. It says that Amir al-Mu'mineen had been through so much. However, they say that one of the people who was there, he narrates, he says that I could see the redness, not just of anger, but of true sorrow in the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen. His eyes had turned black and there was redness within the eye. You know, when you weep profusely, it scars the tissue within the eye. It scars the muscle around the eye. And you can cry enough that you can damage your eye. And it's such that Amir al-Mu'mineen has had composure and sabr and patience all this time. But now even the people are seeing the cracks. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he maintained the wasiyah. But it came to the point, once he'd buried his flower, there was nothing more for him to hold in for. And that's what breaks my heart, is in this time that if you don't even see the reactions, okay, of Amir al-Mu'mineen, of Imam al-Hassan, of Imam al-Hussein, such that Imam al-Hassan, the riwayat state that his entire life, when he would see certain individuals, be it Qunfud, be it Omar, be it walking, he would walk across the street from them, such that because he would, every time he would become a flashback of the night within the alley. They say that Imam al-Hassan was once taken to the courtyard of Muawiyah, and they were trying to speak ill of him, and they were trying to belittle him, and one of them mentioned his mother. He says that you would say that Imam al-Hassan had the most sabr. He said to the man, shut up. And they were shocked. Hassan is reacting like this. Hassan al-Mujtaba, the one his most sabr. He says that, no, whenever I see this man, I remember the bruises on my mother's face.
He was the one who struck.
Ahsan. So it's these aspects that we as Shias in these nights especially have to remember. And this kind of brings me on to the final sort of conclusion, would be that in an era like today, as we move on and such, where would you say that the oppression of Zahra places us, and how do we remember it within our day-to-day lives such that we can emblem it onto us, or have a marking onto us that Sayyidah Zahra is always with us?
Hassan, I feel like Lady Fatima should be remembered every day, should be commemorated every day, should be honored every day. We have to understand the status of Lady Fatima, that Allah has given her, the hadith says, 9 names. 9 names. We can sit there and give someone fake names, but then you have the creator of the universe giving these titles and traits to Lady Fatima. And she only died at the age of 18. She is a role model for any mother, for any wife, for any daughter, for any man and woman, not just the women, the men as well. Her patience, her knowledge, her sabr, her stand against oppression, her amr bil ma'ruf and nahi an al munkar, ordering good and denying evil. This is very important. Someone comes to the Imam, he says, "Oh Imam," I believe it was Imam Sadiq, "how do we say that Allah gets angry and Allah does not, or Allah is pleased and Allah is angry? Isn't that a shift of state? That Allah shifts from being angry to then being pleased. Doesn't that mean that Allah changes? Because you say Allah, in instances He's angry, and in instances what? He's happy, He's pleased." The Imam says, "No, you have misunderstood Allah. When we say Allah angers for something, or Allah is pleased with something, and in some instances Allah is embarrassed from the slave, Allah is saddened, this isn't emotion of Allah. This is Allah's reaction to the emotions of His representatives. Allah has placed His representatives and He has given them authority, that you are my representative upon this earth. So, whatever they do is in accordance with Allah's message. They represent Allah. So if they become angry, it is only normal that it wreaks the wrath of Allah. It's not that Allah becomes emotional. It's not that Allah changes from a state to state. No, it is a reaction to the anger and the pleasure of the representatives of Allah. And as we see in the other schools of thought, that Fatima's anger and pleasure is equivalent to the anger and pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. And especially when it comes to the oppression of Ahlul Bayt, we have to commemorate it. You do not have time to attend gatherings regarding Lady Fatima, even though it is very crucial and very important. Sit there with your family during dinner. Say that, عظم الله لكم الأجر. Today is a sad occasion. Let's learn about Lady Fatima a little bit. Let's read at least one hadith about Lady Fatima. Let's read about what happened to her, crying over her. Sit at your house, on your way to work, on your way back. Say, you know what, I'm going to learn a bit about Lady Fatima. Chuck a lecture on. Gain some knowledge about Lady Fatima. On your way to work, on your way back, on the train. Make it different. Do not make it your daily routine like every day when Fatimiyya arrives. Make it different. Because we have to understand, we have to be very careful of oppressing or neglecting the oppression of Ahlul Bayt. As Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, من لم يعرف سوء ما أتى علينا من ظلمنا وذهاب حقنا وما ركبنا فهو شريك من أتى إلينا فيما ولينا به. Whoever does not know the oppression that befell us and the removal of our rights, he is the associate of the one who oppressed us. That is very dangerous. The Imam is not saying someone who denies the oppression, that there's this and there's that. People deny. The Imam is saying those who do not know, those who do not bother themselves and seek knowledge about what happened to our oppression, they are associates. So we have to be very, very careful. And by the way, this is in Bihar al-Anwar, book number 27, page 55, and Thawab al-A'mal al-Saduq, page number 208. To understand that Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha, the pivotal aspect, the identifying part of our identity has to be honored, has to be remembered, even if it is a slight change of routine, even if it is listening to an extra lecture or two on your way to work or back. Make it different. Post on your phone, on your Instagram, on your Facebook. This is something that will be recorded. That on the Fatimiyya, Fulan, Fulana, they played a role in commemorating this in spreading this news. This is very important, and especially something that we have to hold on to.
To be honest, I think that brings us onto a nice conclusion, but I wanted to add one quick thing. I wanted to ask you, Sayyidah Zahra's commitment to the Imam of her time, we've touched on it here and there within this series. I wanted to ask you, how do we use that as a way to show commitment to the Imam of our time? A lot of the youth, especially, let's focus on the youth especially, because they're the ones who will be the future. They're the ones, inshallah, who will be alongside Imam Sahib Zaman, inshallah. And how do they hereby use the example of Sayyidah Zahra's commitment to Amir al-Mu'mineen? The example of her helping Amir al-Mu'mineen in going at night, house by house, knocking on the door and pleading for the case of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Or her speaking against the tyrants of the time. Or her speaking to the women to say, speak to your husbands. Or her speaking to the children to explain to them that go out, spread the message, tell your parents. These things, how do we implement this wilaya or this commitment to the Imam of our time through the example of Sayyidah Zahra?
Beautiful point. We look at these in steps. Step number one, we look at what Sayyidah Zahra done and then we try to compare it to our situation. She went out of her time to call the people to the Imam of her time. Okay? To call the people to guidance. To gain the people closer to the Imam of their time. What effort have we spent to call to the Imam of our time? Lady Zahra would knock on the doors. This is the Imam of your time. Have we spread knowledge about the Imam of our time? Have we even remembered the Imam of our time? Have we spoken to people about the Imam of our time? Tried to gain recognition to the people about the Imam of our time? That's one thing. Another aspect, Lady Fatima did not care if her child was going to die. Did not care if her ribs were broken. Did not care if she was struck on the face. Did not care if she was struck on the back of the spear. Did not care for all of this. But she only cared for the health of her Imam. We have to understand the Ahl al-Bayt don't act upon emotion. Their status of imamat, their status of God's representatives is never overcome by emotion. So when they do get emotional for something, it is because that is the representative of Allah. It is the divine aspect of it. So she did not care what happened to her as long as the Imam of her time was safe. For us, we will remember the Imam of our time. We will read Dua al-Ahad, and I say this to myself. We will read this dua, but when it becomes inconvenient, we'll miss Salat al-Subh. When it becomes inconvenient, we will forget to read Dua al-Ahad. When it becomes inconvenient, we will leave our Imam. That's not how Sayyidah Zahra had. It was the biggest inconvenience for her. The miscarriage of her child, the breaking of her rib. But all she saw was the Imam of her time. who do we see in our daily lives? Because sometimes I look in retrospect and I see that I have been overcome by routine. I'm too busy with university, I'm too busy with work. I kind of forget who I'm living for. Well and truly.
Of course.
We say with our tongue that yes, we are here for the Imam of our time. The epicenter is the Imam of our time. The reason why Allah has upheld this universe is for the Imam of our time. And we are awaiting the Imam of our time, and if he appears, we'll be with the Imam of our time. I'm living my life barely remembering him. So if he appears, I'll be like, I was fine without you. I don't really need you. There's no yearn for him. There's no love for him. There's no sacrifice for him. There is no importance given to him. And well and truly our Imam is oppressed. Well and truly our Imam is oppressed. But we look at Sayyidah Zahra, what she gave for the Imam of her time, of sacrifice, of inconvenience to herself, standing against his enemies. How are we standing against the enemies of the Imam of our time? The enemies of the Imam of our time is your own nafs that tries to make you do sin. The enemies of the Imam of our time is the shaitan trying to make you fall. The enemies of the Imam of our time is all these desires that try to pull you into haram, especially living in Western countries.
Yeah.
These are the enemies of the Imam of your time, because if they do a good job, they ensure that the Imam has one less supporter, that the Imam has one less of his Shia. And the Imam reviews this every week. He sees our deeds. Are we going to make him proud? Where he becomes happy. He says that one of my Shia has done good this week. Or our week will be full of sins to which the Imam will be hurt. His heart breaks. He is like the kind and loving father. When he sees his son go the wrong way, his heart breaks. How will we treat our Imam when we look at how Lady Fatima and what she done for the Imam of her time?
Ahsant. Inshallah, with that said, Redha, we pray that we are of those who make our Imam proud.
Ameen.
And we pray that we are also of those who stand alongside our Imam when he commemorates these nights, inshallah. And we have the opportunity to be with those who are standing alongside him when he takes revenge for Sayyidah Zahra and Muhsin. Inshallah, we pray that all of our viewers at home are taking part in the majalis of Fatimiyya and are attending the Muhsainiyas. وآخر الدعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.